the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a series of bills that are expected to provide much-needed aid to Ukraine and Israel. The passage of the four bills comes after weeks of stalling by Republican lawmakers. The Senate still needs to vote on the legislation. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
Plenty of political wrangling, but that enormous $96 billion foreign aid package has now passed the House of Representatives, where it has been languishing for weeks. The only way that the House Speaker, Republican Mike Johnson, was able to get this passed was by breaking it up into four individual aid packages, essentially based on different regions. So the largest proportion of that money, $61 billion, went to Ukraine, about $26 billion to Israel. Taiwan and allies in the Indo-Pacific got $8 billion, and then there was a separate bill that looked at a whole range of different issues, including a potential ban on the app TikTok, sanctions on Iran, China, and also looking to seize Russian assets. That, in many ways, was a way to sweeten the deal to help the hardline conservatives that have been fighting this aid package for many weeks to try and help to get them on board. But bear in mind, many of them still voted against these four bills, and the only way that the House Speaker was able to get it passed was by relying on the Democrats in the House of Representatives.
These are not normal times, they're not. The world is destabilized, and it's a tinderbox. It's a dangerous time. Three of our primary adversaries, Russia and Iran and China, are working together, and they're being aggressors around the globe. And they're a global threat to our prosperity and our security. Their advance threatens the free world, and it demands American leadership. If we turn our backs right now, the consequences could be devastating. So this afternoon, the House acted, and we sent over to the Senate, and it will be transmitted shortly, our supplemental national security legislation.
And that now could potentially cost Mike Johnson, a Republican, his job as Speaker of the House. There is a threat to oust him. At least three Republicans have come forward threatening a potential vote, a vote that could come in the coming days. And if there is enough support, we could see him thrown out of the job, a job he's only been in for several months. Now, this has passed the House of Representatives, these four foreign aid bills. They'll now be moving on to the Senate, and we're expecting votes as early as Tuesday. We're likely to see a swift package, in particular the aid for Ukraine, Israel, and for Taiwan. And the US President Joe Biden has said as soon as it gets to his desk, he will sign off on these, giving much needed aid packages to those foreign conflicts, aid that President Biden is fighting for and has been wanting to try and get passed for many months now. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Well, the Kremlin has reacted angrily to news that the U.S. Congress has approved an aid package for Ukraine. Russia said on Sunday that Washington is wading deeper into a hybrid war with Russia that would end in a humiliation on a par with Vietnam or Afghanistan. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said that it was clear that the United States wanted Ukraine to fight to the last Ukrainian, including with attacks on Russian sovereign territory and civilians. All right, and DD India's Dasha Chernashova joins us from Moscow. Dasha, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has apparently said that the decision will make the United States of America richer, further ruin Ukraine and result in the deaths of even more Ukrainians. Could you just explain the entire matter? What is it?
Well, that's right. That's according to the Kremlin spokesman. Ukraine will get poorer. It will be ruined because the operation of Moscow will have to continue, and Moscow will have to destroy more weapons supplied by the Western countries to Ukraine, and that means the loss of even more Ukrainian soldiers. At the same time, according to the rhetoric we are getting here from Moscow, the United States will only get richer because those will be the U.S. corporations, the U.S. weapon producers that will be getting more and more money from the U.S. budget as they will be sending those weapons to Ukraine. In the meantime, Moscow does insist that no matter how much Ukraine gets aid from the United States or other countries or NATO, the operation will one way or another achieve its goals.
Well, Dasha, uh, on Saturday, the US House of Representatives approved more than $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. Could you just tell us what all is included in the package?
Well, we understand that in the Ukraine bill, which provides for the $60 billion of aid that will be provided to Ukraine, the $23 billion will be used by Washington to replenish its military stockpiles that will be opening the door to more US weapon supplies to Ukraine. We also understand that $14 billion would go to the Ukrainian Security Assistance Initiative, in which Pentagon buys advanced new weapons to Ukraine. And also we understand that there is the provision of $11 billion to fund current US military operations in the region. That is also about the enhancement of the intelligence cooperation between Kyiv and Washington. Another $8 billion according to the documents will go to the non-military assistance, including helping Ukraine to maintain its current operations, such as paying salaries. But also a very important provision that has been made in these documents is the possibility of freezing Russian assets. And to this, the Kremlin has reacted critically, saying that would lead to the flight of the investors from the US stock market.
All right, you summed it up very nicely, Dasha. Thank you so much for your assessment. Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude to the US after the House passed a bill providing additional funds to Ukraine in its ongoing conflict against Russia. Zelensky said the support, still to be approved by the US Senate, will be used by his country to bring a just end to this conflict.
Thanks to each and everyone who supported our package. This is the decision to protect lives. I would like to personally thank Speaker Mike Johnson and all American hearts who, like us in Ukraine, feel that Russian evil must not win. I hope that the package will get considered in the US Senate and forwarded to President Biden fast enough. We appreciate every manifestation of support for our state and our independence, our people and our life, which Russia wants to bury in ruins so much. America has shown its leadership from the first days of this war.
US leaders, from Democratic President Joe Biden to top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell, had been urging embattled Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson to bring the bill up for a vote. US President Joe Biden said in a statement that the bill comes at a moment of grave urgency, with Israel facing unprecedented attacks from Iran and Ukraine under continued bombardment from Russia. The legislation now proceeds to the Democratic majority Senate, which passed a similar measure more than 2 months ago. The Senate is expected to pass the measure next week, sending it to Biden to sign into law. Well, NATO and EU chiefs on Saturday hailed the US House of Representatives' approval of a long-awaited $61 billion aid package for Ukraine and urged the Senate to quickly clear the bill. NATO chief in a statement said that the passing of this bill demonstrates the continued bipartisan support for Ukraine. He said the significant boost in aid will supplement the tens of billions of aid being provided to Ukraine by European allies. He urged Senate to pass the bill and send it to President Biden. While 2 Palestinian attackers tried to shoot and stab Israeli soldiers in the occupied West Bank on Sunday, and in response with this, Israeli soldiers responded with live fire and neutralized both attackers. There was no immediate comment from Palestinian officials. Meanwhile, thousands of Israeli demonstrators across Israel and Jerusalem took to the streets on Saturday to call for new elections and demand more actions from the government to bring the hostages. The conflict between Israel and Iran appears to be de-escalating for now. It's the result of hectic diplomatic efforts by world leaders and their call for restraint both the parties. The effort to ease the tension is still on. DD India's Raghav Kumar Jha reports. Take a look.
World leaders called on Iran and Israel to try to avoid escalating tensions following the apparent Israeli airstrike on Friday near an Iranian airbase and nuclear facility. Group of 7 foreign ministers meeting in Italy warned of new sanctions against Iran for its drone and missile attack on Israel last weekend and urged both sides to avoid worsening the conflict. Meanwhile, Egyptian Foreign Minister visited Turkey and discussed Iran-Israel tensions and situation in Gaza with his Turkish counterpart. After the meeting, Turkish Foreign Minister strongly advocated two-state solution for resolving the Middle East crisis.
Our first priority should be ending the Israeli occupation and implementing the two-state solution formula.
On the other hand, the White House said that the United States is making all efforts to reduce the risk of escalation in the Middle East.
We have been very, very clear from here, from the beginning, that we do not want to see this conflict escalate. We continue to consult with our allies and partners, including in the region, obviously, and to reduce further risk of escalation.
The conflict between Israel and Iran appears de-escalating for now, as Israel has not officially acknowledged its involvement in the attack in Iran, whereas Iran's military and political leaders are also downplaying the attack. Raghav Kumar Jha reporting for DD India.
And in a first since Israel began its campaign in Gaza, a Hamas delegation headed by Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Haniyeh's visit took place 3 days after he held talks with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Doha. Erdogan discussed efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza and reach a fair and lasting peace in the region with Haniyeh during a meeting in Istanbul. The Turkish presidency said the two sides discussed issues related to Israel's attacks, efforts for adequate and uninterrupted delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza, and a fair and lasting peace process in the region. The visit also came amid escalating regional tensions after Israel's reported attack on Iran this week. Erdogan emphasized during the meeting that Israel should not benefit from the development between Iran and Israel.